Hello children, how are you? I hope you all are doing good. Children, now we will do active and passive voice. Now think. Observe the following sentences and find out the doer and the receiver of the action. Underline the doer with blue color and receiver with red. Discuss with your partner. इस sentences को अच्छे से पढ़िए और फिर इसमें देखिए कौन डूअर है और कौन रिसीवर है. डूअर को ब्लू कलर से और रिसीवर को रेड कलर से मार्क करिए. नाउ डू मेक 4 more sentences with the doer and receiver of the action. उसके बाद आपको क्या करना है, 4 सेंटेंस बनाने हैं. डूअर और रिसीवर दोनों उसमें होने चाहिए. Now read. Voice is the term quality of verb that indicates whether its subject acts in active or passive, acted upon. When the subject of a verb is the doer of the action, the verb is known to be in the active voice. अगर सेंटेंस में जो सब्जेक्ट है वो एक्शन का डूअर है, एक्शन को करने वाला है, तो हमारा सेंटेंस एक्टिव वॉइस होगा. एग्जाम्पल, मोहित एंटर्ड द क्लासरूम clumsily. A verb seems to be in the passive voice when it indicates what is done to a person or thing. The subject is the receiver of the action. Passive voice में क्या होगा, सब्जेक्ट एक्शन का रिसीवर होगा. एक्टिव वॉइस में डूअर होगा और पैसिव वॉइस में रिसीवर होगा. एग्जाम्पल, ही वॉज हेल्प्ड बाय द पियून. To change a sentence from active to passive voice, the following points are to be remembered. एक्टिव से पैसिव में बनाने के लिए हमें ये पॉइंट्स को माइंड में रखना होगा और फिर हम सेंटेंस को चेंज करेंगे. Number 1, the object of the verb in the active voice becomes the subject in the passive voice. जो एक्टिव वॉइस में सब्जेक्ट है वो पैसिव वॉइस में क्या बन जाएगा, ऑब्जेक्ट. The object of the verb in the active voice becomes the subject and subject becomes the object. Example, Riha cut the cake. ये एक्टिव वॉइस में है. रिहा सब्जेक्ट है और उसने क्या किया है, केक को काटा है. ये उसका ऑब्जेक्ट. द केक वॉज कट बाय रिहा, पैसिव वॉइस. कट किसने करा है, रिहा ने. यहाँ पे ये सब्जेक्ट हो गया और यहाँ पे आपका रिहा दोबारा से ऑब्जेक्ट हो गया. पहले केक आपका जो है सब्जेक्ट बना, उसके बाद रिहा आपका ऑब्जेक्ट बन गया. फर्स्ट सेंटेंस में रिहा आपका सब्जेक्ट था और केक आपका ऑब्जेक्ट था. इन द अबव एग्जाम्पल, द एक्टिव सब्जेक्ट इन फर्स्ट सेंटेंस बिकम्स पैसिव इन द सेकेंड. फर्स्ट में जो एक्टिव सब्जेक्ट था वो सेकेंड में पैसिव बन गया क्योंकि वो रिसीवर बन गया. The object in the active voice becomes the subject in the passive voice. The preposition by is added before riha. The verb cut becomes was cut. Cut को क्या यूज करा हमने, verb का was cut. Now changes in pronouns. Following changes are to be kept in mind when the subject or object in a sentence in the active voice is a pronoun. Only the pronouns you and it doesn't change at all. Active voice as in subject and passive voice as in object. I, me, we, us, they, them, you, he, him, she, her, it. Now examples. He presented the bouquet to the dignitaries. Active voice. The dignitaries were presented bouquet by him. Passive voice. I visited the mall. Active voice. The mall was visited by me. Passive voice. Now, ditransitive verbs. If the transitive verb has 2 objects, direct and indirect object, then either of the object can become the subject. The verb with 2 objects are known as ditransitive verb. वो verb जिसमें 2 objects होते हैं उसको हम किस नाम से जानते हैं, ditransitive verb. अगर transitive verb के पास दो ऑब्जेक्ट हैं, डायरेक्ट और इनडायरेक्ट, ठीक है। तो उनमें से जो ऑब्जेक्ट है उसमें से कोई भी आपका सब्जेक्ट बन सकता है। एग्जाम्पल, नेहा गेव मी अ लेक्चर। नेहा सब्जेक्ट है इसमें, मी इनडायरेक्ट ऑब्जेक्ट है एंड लेक्चर डायरेक्ट ऑब्जेक्ट है। द अबव रिटन सेंटेंस कैन बी रीरिटन इन पैसिव वॉइस इन टू वेज। नंबर 1, I was given a lecture by Neha. Number 2, a lecture was given to me by Neha. Now subject, verb agreement in active and passive form. Active passive form में subject verb agreement कैसे होता है? It is mandatory for the subject to agree with its verb in the passive voice as well. Subject verb agreement का होना compulsory है. Example, the temple was visited by Granny. The temples were visited by Granny. In the first sentence, the temple is singular, so the verb was is used. When the subject in passive active voice is singular, is was is used. अगर आपका subject singular है तो verb form भी आप passive में singular को ही use करेंगे. In the second sentence, the subject the temples is plural, so the verb were is used. When the subject in passive voice is plural, the verb are were is used. अगर plural में होगा तो passive voice में भी are और were का use किया जाएगा. Verbs and prepositions. Occasionally, the active verb is followed by a preposition. जो active verb है उसके साथ preposition का use किया जाता है. This preposition is retained while changing the verb from active to passive voice. Example, my father is talking to his colleagues. Active voice. The colleague is being talked to by my father. This is passive voice. Soham runs after the thief. Active voice. The thief is run after by Soham. Passive voice. Now changes in the active passive voice according to the tense. Tense के according कैसे change होते हैं? Now simple present. Remember the rule. Active voice, base form of the verb, sometimes with s or es. Passive voice is mr plus past participle of the verb. Example, she draws a picture during her vacations. This is in active voice. A picture is drawn by her during her vacations. Passive voice. Does he call you on your special days? Active voice. Are you called on your special days by him? Passive voice. Who writes essay in the class? Active voice. By whom are the essays written in the class? Passive voice. Who are the essays written by in the class? In passive voice. Next, present continuous. Active voice is mr plus ing form of the verb. Passive voice is mr plus being plus past participle form of the verb. Examples, the doctor is seeing the patients in the clinic. Active voice. The patients are being seen by the doctor in the clinic. Passive voice. Why is he scolding you? Active voice. Why are you being scolded by him? Passive voice. Are you reading a comic? Active voice. Is a comic being read by you? Passive voice. Next is present perfect. Now remember the rule. Active voice has, have plus past participle form of the verb. Passive voice has, have plus been plus past participle form of the verb. Example, he has written a letter. Active voice. A letter has been written by him. Passive voice. Who has stolen my purse? Active voice. By whom has the purse been stolen? Passive voice. Next is simple past. Remember the rule. Active voice, past tense of the verb. Passive voice, was, were plus past participle form of the verb. Example, the child threw the paper in the dustbin. Active voice. The paper was thrown by the child in the dustbin. Passive voice. Did he scold you? Active voice. Were you scolded by him? Passive voice. Who cluttered the room? Active voice. By whom was the room cluttered? Passive voice. Next is past continuous. Active voice, was, were plus ing form of the verb. Passive voice, was, were plus being plus past participle form of the verb. Examples: he was talking to me rudely when the teacher entered the class. Active voice. I was being talked rudely by him when the teacher entered the class. This is passive voice. Were you fixing the problem? Active voice. Was the problem being fixed by you? Passive voice. Next is past perfect. Remember the rule. Active voice, had plus past participle form of the verb. Passive voice, had been plus past participle form of the verb. Examples: I had completed the exercise. Active voice. The exercise had been completed by me. Passive voice. Had you posted the letter? Active voice. Had the letter been posted by you? Passive voice. Next is simple future. Remember the rule. Active voice, shall, will plus base form of the verb. Passive voice, shall, will plus past participle form of the verb. Examples: I shall achieve my goal this month. Active voice. My goal shall be achieved by me this month. Passive voice. When will you cover your notebooks? Active voice. When will your notebooks be covered by you? Passive voice. Now future continuous tense. Note: verbs in the future continuous tense don't change to passive voice. Future continuous tense में passive voice में change नहीं होता. Future perfect tense. Remember the rule. Active voice, will, shall, have past participle form of the verb. Passive voice, will, shall, have been past participle form of the verb. Now examples: she will have discussed the problem with me. Active voice. The problem will have been discussed by her with me. Passive voice. Will they have inaugurated a new shop? Active voice. Will a new shop have been inaugurated by them? Passive voice. Next is modal auxiliaries. If the sentences in the active voice have modal auxiliary can, could, may, might, ought to, should, shall, etc., then those sentences change into passive voice in the following way. Examples: I can do it. Active voice. It can be done by me. Passive voice. You should tell her about the truth. Active voice. You should be told about the truth by you. Passive voice. We ought to respect our national anthem. Active voice. Our national anthem ought to be respected by us. This is passive voice. Next, commands and orders. Have a look at the following examples to understand how sentences pointing out an order or a command are changed into passive voice. जो command के और order के sentences होते हैं उन्हें कैसे change करते हैं. See, open the garage. Active voice. Let the garage be opened. Passive voice. Or the garage should be opened. Passive voice. Sit down immediately. Active voice. Let you be sat down immediately. Passive voice. Or you should be sat down immediately. Passive voice. Sentences that begin with let. Following are the examples that show how the sentences beginning with the let are changed into the passive voice. अगर let से start हो रहा है तो उन्हें कैसे change करेंगे? Let us start the discussion now. Active voice. Let the discussion be started by us now. Passive voice. Let her go on her own. Active voice. Let her be gone on her own. Passive voice. Now conversion of interrogative sentences into passive voice. Now interrogative forms of the interrogative sentences doesn't change into the passive form. ये passive form में change नहीं होते. Example: Did you taste the dish? Active voice. Was the dish tasted by you? Passive voice. Have you packed your bag? This is active voice. Has the bag packed by you? Passive voice. Did you wash the utensils? Active voice. Were the utensils washed by you? Passive voice. Does she solve your problems? Active voice. Are your problems solved by her? This is passive voice. Who created the mess? Active voice. By whom has the mess been created? Passive voice. When did you join this job? Active voice. When was this job joined by you? Passive voice. Now take a cut out of an article from the newspaper and tell your partner whether the sentences written in the article are in active voice or a passive voice. आपको क्या करना है? न्यूज़पेपर से एक आर्टिकल की कटिंग लेनी है और अपने पार्टनर को बताना है कि वो आर्टिकल आपका एक्टिव वॉइस में है या पैसिव वॉइस में है. आई होप इट इज़ क्लियर टू यू नाउ. दिस इज योर एक्सरसाइज. यू हैव टू डू इट.